everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on the Big Eye Sports Podcast. And as always, I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, it just fits in with our next guest here with all the great coaches that we've had at Anderson High School. And Jeff has just had an unbelievable, career at Anderson High School. And you think about, what he's done with, arguably one of the best teams in Anderson High School history, and that and a 3-year run of state championship, state runner-up and regional finals. And I believe he's also coached some basketball too at Anderson. I think you had the privilege of coaching with him. But I'm pretty excited to have Jeff joining us, Steve.
Yeah, I'm real excited because Jeff's a great guy. Everybody knows Jeff. He's been around for a while and just a class guy. I'm really excited to do this one, Danny. And if I'm not mistaken, in the history of the school, I think Jeff is the only team head coach that's ever won a state championship.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That is correct.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Sometimes a blind squirrel finds an egg.
Great friend, great coach, great teacher. So happy to have him on.
Yep. Yeah, so like I said, we're joining us as the former head coach of the Anderson Redskins. Pretty impressive, like we said, state championship, and I believe 55 wins. And Jeff, it's pretty impressive. And thanks again for taking the time to join us here tonight.
Oh, I'm glad to, guys. I've seen the show. You do quite a wide variety of different interviews and different people, and some of them I'd never really listened to or anything. I think you had Dick Sander on here, basketball coach one time, and some other people. So it's pretty cool, kind of. I've been around a long time, since 1988, but there's still, you guys are, definitely
lifelongers.
You're lifetimers. You know all the history.
Yeah,
all the secrets are buried with you, Dan.
Oh, yes, it is.
I got them all. For both of us too. I'm sure there's a lot of bad stories about us too. But so Jeff, let's go back to I'm not sure if a lot of people really know. I know Steve and I probably do, but go back to your high school, like your high school days and where you grew up in high school, and let everybody know that, like, did you and what kind of sports did you play in high school?
Well, I'm from a little town in southeastern Indiana called Oldenburg, the village of Spires. If you like fried chicken and old German stuff, go there. Good place. But the kids in Oldenburg went to Batesville High School. So I went to Batesville and graduated there in 1980. And I played football, basketball, and baseball, through high school. And, we played Lawrenceburg and East Central, Greensburg, and some of they were all in that league. Everybody kind of along 74 there and around in southeastern Indiana. It was a good little league and so forth. And Batesville's about the size of, I don't know, maybe McNick, as far as the school, maybe a little smaller even and stuff. So, but the advantage there, you knew everybody, you knew all your friends you grew up with were playing, and so forth. And it was a great place to play high school sports and kind of get started, I guess, with my love of sports and things like that.
Yeah. What
was your favorite sport there, Jeff?
What's that?
What was your favorite sport there?
I actually enjoyed playing basketball more than anything. I mean, I love football, but I enjoyed playing basketball. I think some of that was I had a brother who's a year older, and we got to play varsity together when I was a junior. He was a senior. So we played JV together. Before that, he actually played JV as a junior, and I was a sophomore. And then he really progressed and had a great senior year and was our leading scorer. And I got to play and a lot as a junior and so forth. And we had a pretty good team my junior year. And I always tell the story. It's interesting that our center was a guy named Bill Wanstroth, who only had one arm, but he was 6'7". And he was such a good athlete. He got 11 letters in high school.
Damn.
Wow.
He got 4 in basketball. Let me think of this right. 4 in track, and I think 3 in basketball, 4 in tennis, and 4 in track. So, but it was a good team. There's a lot of good athletes on it, and he was just an interesting guy that I was amazed at how good he was. I mean, I think he played at Marion College for a year or two in Indianapolis, and just a big, quiet guy, but he was just really he was kind of an inspirational guy and just an interesting guy to be around. And like I said, my older brother and some other guys, and but I enjoyed basketball a great deal, but football was fun as well. And the interesting thing about that, we played East Central my senior year, and we played them twice on our field because theirs was under construction. And we played their homecoming at Batesville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we got to beat them twice that year. It was awesome.
Wow. That's pretty
We were in
cool.
their homecoming. And baseball was fun. I wasn't as into that as much, but I enjoyed it a lot, and kept me busy in the springtime, and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So did you get recruited out of high school, Jeff, for either basketball or football?
Well, I wasn't necessarily recruited as much. I got a couple letters from some D3 schools, and I actually went to Franklin College. Just really they were talking to another guy, a classmate of mine, and he was going up there, and I said, well, I'll ride along, and I just kind of went up, and it wasn't like I was blown away with their facilities or anything like that, but I enjoyed the coaching staff. The guy that was the head coach at the time was named Stuart Fott, or Red Fott. His nickname was Red. He's a legendary coach in Indiana as far as the passing game goes.
Mm-hmm.
He used to when the run and shoot was getting started with Mouse Davis and all those guys, Red knew him, and they kind of bounced ideas off each other. So it's kind of like Evan is at Anderson. Red loved to score points and always had high-powered offenses like Evan does, and things like that. And we played some great teams. We played Butler, and they were in the league, and it's Indianapolis now. Back then it was Indiana Central, St. Joe's, which isn't around anymore, Georgetown.
Yeah.
And go to Wisconsin, went to Tennessee and played Carson Newman a couple times. And of course we couldn't stop them. They had such great players, but we could score 30 and they'd score 40, but we had, I just had a great time there, learning about football. And Red was a great teacher and a great man, and did a lot for a lot of players. And there's a lot of guys in Indiana that are high school coaches that have a Franklin connection. It's kind of like the Miami of Ohio,
right?
Cradle of coaches. Franklin had a lot of guys that went into high school coaching, and I think because of Coach Fott. In my first year there, we had two assistant coaches, and I know you'll know one name. The other one you may not know, but he's an NFL coach, or he may just have retired. But Terry Hepner was on the staff.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And former coach at Miami and at IU, and has since passed away. And he played at Franklin for Coach Fott. And the other was Mike DeBoard, who went on to coach at Michigan, was a head coach, I think, at Central Michigan or Western Michigan. Then he got in the NFL, was with the Seahawks and the Bears.
Wow.
I think the last job he had, he was the offensive coordinator at IU last year, but I think Mike has since retired. So it was Coach Fott was a tremendous coach. We had two future, basically NFL caliber coaches with us as well. It's kind of neat.
That's fun.
Yep.
So when you were in college, Jeff, or maybe going back to high school, was there a moment, or did you realize that you wanted to be a teacher and a coach, or vice versa, maybe coach first? But I mean, had it always been that's what you wanted to do, or?
Yeah, I kind of thought about it in high school because sports was such a big part of my life. I mean, I basically, when I was growing up, you did your chores at home, and then you went and got on your bike and found a bunch of guys, and you played a baseball game or a football game or basketball or whatever. And I really enjoyed that. And so I went to school and I thought about it, but I said, I'll start off and be a business major. And that lasted about a year and a half. And I one day I was sitting in accounting class and I said, oh, this is just boring. I couldn't take it. So I said, I'm just going to do what I want to do, and became a teacher and got my degree in physical education and a minor in science. And the science is what got me my first teaching job. And, I haven't looked back since, and I haven't regretted it. It's been a great career, and still working on it. So
how did you get to Anderson, Jeff? How did that all transpire? How did you find out about a position? How did all that work?
Well, I had my first coaching job was at a little school in Greencastle, Indiana, where DePaul is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for 3 years. Very fortunate to be under a good coach, Mark Wildman. We were in the smallest division, yeah. And my second year there, we won the state championship.
Wow.
So I'm assistant coach. We win the state championship and playing at the Hoosier Dome at the time.
Yep.
And I thought, well, it's a nice place to be. I was a head baseball coach, JV basketball coach, kind of doing everything. I didn't have kids yet, and just gotten married, and but my first wife at the time, she was with Kroger's, and she got promoted down to Cincinnati. And so I, got my resume together and sent them out, probably 30 or 40 of them, just to every coach that I could get an address of in Cincinnati. And I talked to one guy in Northern Kentucky, somebody that my first wife knew, set me up, and I had a phone interview with him. And I got a letter back from Steve Rasso, who was at St. X at the time, which was not very nice of him to send me a letter back, say he didn't have anything. But then Vince calls me one night. It's kind of out of the blue. I don't know. This was probably in March, April, something like that. And he's telling me about Anderson and everything else. And I didn't know anything. I didn't know where it was. I didn't, there's an Anderson, Indiana. There's, and so I look on the map, and I kind of, and it was a real map. It wasn't online because there was nothing like
right.
that. So I find it and look, and through some of the people we knew, we found out it was a nice community, good schools, and so forth. So got an interview set up. They needed a science teacher. And at that time, the Anderson was 7 through 12. So it's kind of a junior high science position, and football. And so I came down, and I remember walking in front door, and Randy Corbett was sitting there, which normally that's what Randy did, just kind of sat around in the senior locker. I saw him, and I introduced myself and said I'm supposed to have an interview with Mr. Hall, and so forth. So, but let me backtrack a bit. I had already talked with Vince and met with him and so forth a little bit, and he kind of told me to, come down, meet with Mr. Hall. So I did that, and Mr. Hall was a great guy, and I know that he had kind of told Vince he was going to try to get him some coaches in the building and things like that. And I think Vince was pushing to get me in, and Mr. Hall was trying to help him and things like that. And then, they hired me, and I went from a small school, country school, to Anderson, which at the time I thought, wow, this is big time.
Yeah.
It was, 3 times as big and so forth, good facilities from what I had come from and so forth. So it was just, a neat thing. I didn't know that I would be there as long as I was and whatnot, but, it really worked out for me.
So saying that with your first time coming to Anderson, obviously talked a little bit about on your impression there being a bigger school and all that, but talking about that, not only school, but the football. I mean, I was a part of those crappy years. I mean, we were 16 and 52, I think, by the time you got there. So
Yeah.
what was your impression about not only the school, but, looking at it like, oh my gosh, this football team? I mean, what was your early impressions of that?
Well, I remember walking down the back stairs to the weight room. Randy was taking me down. I think Vince might have been with us. And I being from Indiana, where basketball was king, I said, do you guys have trouble getting kids to play football because they all want to be basketball players? And they both looked at me like I had 2 heads. And no, I like football and stuff like that. And so I just wasn't aware. And but once I got there, and I got there probably end of May, moved down, started going in the weight room and seeing some of those kids. And because this was would have been Vince's second year, because I think you guys were 1 and
Yeah, because I missed
that first year.
Yep.
Yeah, I coached that first year with Vince, and you weren't on the staff then, I think, and then
Right,
the next year you came.
right, right. So I got in the weight room, and I saw some of these kids, and I mean, Paul Richards was a scholarship player, and Johnny Paxton and Scott Collins, and
Mhm.
some of those kids, they had some talented guys there. And then the underclassmen, there were some good players there. Will Andreatis was a junior, and um, Scott Thomas was a junior quarterback, I think, at the time. And so there was a lot there. I thought, well, there's some good players here. And then I, started to see some of the teams we had to play. And I think we opened up with Forest Park at the time,
Mhm.
and they were just loaded.
Yep.
Carlton Gray and all these guys that were in there, major college players and major college talent. But I was just, I mean, we had a good system in Indiana. Obviously, small schools, it's not as extensive as a big school, but Vince had a great system in place that just took some time to ingrain that into the players and the coaches. I think that I told Vince that one time. I said, I think the thing that he did better than anything really was he developed his coaches, and he let you develop as a coach. He encouraged you to find out new ways of doing things. Now he might not do it,
Right.
but he never told me I couldn't go look at something. For example, Bob Parrish and I sat in on, probably it was about 1990, and we went, instead of going to listen to Michigan's guys talk about the slant and angle 50 again, which we ran, and we knew inside. Now we went and listened to Tommy Tuberville talk about Miami of Florida's 4-3,
Wow.
and just kind of talked to Vince about it and everything. And, I think he was a little bit like, what'd you go listen to him for? But ironically, 2 years later, we put that in, and we were kind of the first school in Cincinnati to put the 4-3 in, and play it the way Miami played it, the way Miami of Ohio played it, because Miami of Ohio had gone to Miami of Florida to get it.
Yeah.
And we had went up there to Oxford a couple evenings and spent 2-3 hours up there. Jay Peterson was up there coaching at the time, and who had been with us at Anderson my first year. And so we kind of had an in on that part of it, and they taught us the ins and outs of it. And it just so happened, but when we put that in 92, then we had kind of the perfect storm of players for that. We had really good D linemen with, Jeff Hast and Jamie Mons and Jeremy Streck and Chris Haywood. So we had 4 good down linemen. We had Nate and Joe and Teddy Brooks were 3 good linebackers. Then we had Freddie and Jason Durso and Aaron Zabo and Herf, on defense. And so we kind of had all the pieces we needed. And those kids really picked it up well. And I mean, they were great football players anyway, and a great team. But that was just kind of interesting, and that it all developed kind of because of just us, Bob and I, just kind of going to listen to this guy, getting some ideas. And we had our notes from a couple of years later when we started to talk about it with Vince, so we could say, hey, look, no, this is how you do this, and so forth. And it really worked out pretty well for us.
Well, you not only talk about you've brought up how it was with Vince and everything, but what was that like? Not only still continuing with coaching them, but when he left to go to Mount St. Joe, and kind of now you're the man, now that you're running the program. And how was that for you at first doing that, and then get acclimated to going from the defensive coordinator to now running the show?
Yeah, you find out a lot of things that you don't know right away. Or a lot of decisions you have to make that you never had to make. When I was defensive coordinator, I worried about the defense. I worried about what our schemes were, what our calls were, how we were setting up our playbook for defense, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I knew what the offense was doing and things like that, but I didn't worry about recruiting. I didn't worry about fundraising. I helped with those things, but
Right.
I didn't have to make decisions on how we were going to do it. I didn't have to worry about parent meetings, and just setting up the off-season program, and just
Right.
all those things that you have to do. So, I mean, I had it over the years. It kind of had a notebook of things that I wanted to do if I ever became a head coach. And people always ask me why I stuck around Anderson so long. And I really just said, I just never saw anything that was worth or an opportunity that I felt was as good as just staying at Anderson. I was having a lot of fun and things like that. But oh yeah, it's a lot different when you sit in there and you have to make the final decision on things. And but I had a great staff. With Matt Stanyard and Mike Cook and we brought some other guys in and brought Adam Zabo came on board, and we had Scott Peters, and so we had a lot of continuity with guys that had been through Anderson's system for a while, and that really helped. And but it's a different lifestyle for sure. When you go to bed and then you wake up at 2 a.m. and go, well, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do about this? Things like that, and it becomes your identity, kind of, whether that's good or bad. And it becomes something that if you let it, will take over all your free time, and you have to balance that with your home life and your personal life and things like that. So yeah, being the head coach is. Cookie told me that one time. I must have been complaining about something, and Cookie says that head coaching stuff isn't at all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And
Hey, Jeff, this will take you full circle and show you how long ago this was. But this year will be the 10th anniversary of the golf outing. Remember
wow.
Remember when you and I kind of put that together? We never thought it would get to a point of where it's at, and it's working on 10 years. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, something that you and I kind of got going. And I'll be honest, I did not think it would take off like it did, to be honest. If we got 30 people, you and I were happy.
Yeah, that first year was 30, and I think we got to like 60, and
Yep.
And it just kind of started to go, but it was still you worked really hard on that, Dan. You were out there scrambling to get things going, and I appreciate that. And I had some great people like you, and John Raymond was a tremendous asset, and different people in the community that were always willing to help. And that's the other thing about Anderson I think was neat, was the parents. I never really had parent issues. I don't think Vince had parent issues. Yeah, every now and then somebody would be unhappy, but for the most part, they just wanted their kid to have a good experience and be coached hard and taken care of. And I think we did that. But the golf outing was a fun thing, and that was one of the fundraising opportunities that I actually enjoyed. Dan, was doing the golf outing. That was a lot of fun, and it's taken off now, and it's a fun affair. I think I've played in about all of them.
Yeah, you have. Well, except for one, when you had your.
Oh yeah, I had a little AFib issue, couldn't make it that day, but yeah, it's been good. It's been got 10 years. Well, I was just thinking today, I guess it's been 13 years since the state championship. So
yeah,
time flies, it really does. But
well, let's talk about that, Jeff, because here you are coming in as the head coach. I mean, could you envisioned, obviously had high hopes, but for that, just a fun ride. I mean, at least from where I was standing. I mean, I know you had a lot on your shoulders and on your responsibilities, but what an unbelievable ride for you, for the team, and for the community. So talk a little bit about how all that just started snowballing all the way up to the championship game.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of not expected at all in the off season. We were, Vince was, he had talked about maybe trying to get into college coaching and when he was going to do that. And he had some opportunities previously, but whatever, it's got to be the right time. And we'd come off a pretty successful year. I think we were 8-2 that year before, and had lost a couple games that we could have won, but we had some bad luck and different things. And that was a really good team. Nicky Weiss and Mark Wetter. We lost like almost 30 seniors in that group, and I think we were coming back with like 13 seniors. It was a small group.
Wow.
And we were like, well, maybe we'll end up 6-4, 7-3 with this group. 8-2 probably is the best we're going to be able to go, just because of inexperience, not because they weren't good players. I mean, Kevin Chapman was a great player, and Elijah Story was, did a great job, and Tyler White and so forth. But I still remember interviewing with Dr. Patswald, and he kind of asked me what my expectations were and what I would like, and I said, well, we're going to win, and I don't know how many games we're going to win, but we're going to win, more than half our games. I said, but I think a thing we're going to measure our success on is if we can continue to have success while maintaining the quality of student athlete that we had, because our kids were good kids. They did what they were supposed to do. I mean, yeah, they're high school kids. Every now and then there's a kid that doesn't do what he's supposed to do, but for the most part, our Anderson kids do what they're supposed to do. And I just remember telling him that in the interview. I said, if we can get through the season and, everybody's had a good experience and we've won our share of games, I said, that's a great first year, and then we'll build from there. Well, we end up getting in the off season, and we had a couple issues here and there. In fact, I think one of the seniors decided not to play, so our numbers were down a little bit more, so forth. But we just kept plugging, working hard in the weight room, doing a few things differently here and there. I think I had like probably 100 old Lift-a-thon t-shirts, because Vince was always known to buy a little extra. We would give those out for lifter of the day, just some little prize and things like that. And the kids really got excited. So the expectation really as far as state championship was never really anything until we got to the playoffs, and we had a rough season in between there, starting out. We started off really good, beating Springboro, and I think who did we beat second? Hamilton, maybe. And then we had a tough double overtime game against Darby. They beat us, and we got a little beat up. And then we had to go play LaSalle, who was just loaded with players. They beat us really bad. I mean, they beat us like 55-12 or something. We just had to regroup, because then we were getting into the league, and we had a great win over Winton Woods, and we just kind of got some momentum going with that group. So we got in the playoffs, and we looked at it, and we liked our draw. We had Kings first, which they played us really well. We didn't play particularly well that night, but we won. I think it was 14-6 or something. And then the second week was
the Carroll.
Was it Dayton Carroll that year, or was it Tecumseh? I don't know. That both of them were second.
Tecumseh was later.
Tecumseh was the second, was 08. So it was Dayton Carroll. Yeah, I think it was Dayton Carroll.
Yeah, Dayton Carroll.
Who we knew was a physical team, liked to run the football, and I don't think, but we also knew they were playing man to man all the time. And when Nick Truesdale moved back in the summer, that gave us a tremendous athlete. That by that time of the year, it took Nick about half the year to figure out what we wanted him to do, and he really started to shine, and he was a tremendous weapon. I mean, he was 6'6" and 6'7" and could run. And we had John Runk, who was a big, tall receiver. So we had tall receivers. We had a smart quarterback. We had a tough running back. We had a pretty physical offensive line, and we had, Andrew Norwell's a sophomore, but he was still a really good player, even though he was just a sophomore. And obviously that's played out. He's in the NFL. And Greg Manns was starting to play more, but there were some great players on that team. And so we got them, and we looked at the draw. We said, well, we knew Turpin was a great team and had a tremendous season. But I sat down and I looked at the records of opposing teams, and our opponents, I think, had almost 10 more wins. So I knew that we had been battle tested, but still they had some great players. And we had to win that game to get out of the region. And we felt like if we could get out of the region, then we didn't know a whole lot about anybody else in the state. but we at least wanted to try to get out of our region, because we figured if we could do that, we had to have been pretty good and have a pretty good chance. And we were fortunate enough to win that game and move on then to play Ashland and so forth. And
I'm a little biased on that, but I think that's one of the greatest calls in Anderson High School history that we've ever made, is when you beat Turpin. So I just a little biased on that when we went a little nuts, Greg and I. So I just
oh yeah, it was exciting. I mean, I just remember there was such a lead up to it, and everybody was just so amped up about the whole thing, and it was and rightly so. But I think what we tried to do was take the approach of telling our guys, we need to worry about ourselves, and we need to play as well as we can play, and we can't get caught up in this other stuff.
right.
Because I knew if that happened, we probably would make a big mistake here or there and so forth. And we weathered the storm in the first half. I mean, we made some plays here and there, and we were a little tight, I think, early in the game. And but when we came out, we just did what we were good at. We ran the football and played pretty physical defense against the run, and that kind of paid off for us as the game wore on. We made them play 4 quarters.
Yep.
And maybe a little longer than 4 quarters, depending on how you look.
We had interviewed we had interviewed Daniel and John Runk at the same time, and one of the things they talked about was how much confidence they had, going into the playoffs and the Turpin game, and obviously going into the state championship game. And said they almost felt loose in some respects in some of those games, but I mean, one of the things I want to ask about is that last minute of that Turpin game, because I mean, Danny has the highlight. He puts it on, about once every 2 weeks.
Year.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. I mean, how much was your head spinning during those last couple minutes of that game?
Well, the biggest thing we had to do was we had to get the ball back. We ended up getting that stop and
Right.
they punted it to us. We got it back, and everybody works on their 2-minute offense and their things like that, but we really had to be good with that. And we were okay with it, but we weren't like we were just clicking. And but we made some great plays when I think it was a 4th down play and John caught the ball.
Yeah.
Keep the drive alive. And then we got down there and then all the controversy started, and we got the sideline warning, and we were out on the field, and we did that on purpose. We didn't even know the rule. We were trying to get our kids' attention.
Right.
And so the referees gave us the warning, which helped us because it stopped the clock, kind of let us get a little bit organized and so forth, and things like that. And the way it ended, because then there was another thing at the end, wasn't there?
They had the measurement. They had to do the measurement.
The measurement. Yes.
Yes.
So everything kind of fell into place for us, just because you need luck. You need some luck. I mean, to win big games, you're not going to always overwhelm people with talent. Sometimes you are, but other times, sometimes you need to have a little luck to win a state championship. And that was our night to have some luck. And
So what
next year in 2008, we didn't have it.
Well, in that last play there, Jeff, what went into the play call there when Daniel ran it in? What was the thought process going in for that?
We were just going to quarterback sneak it, and they had brought in Van Kyken, and they had Luke Kelly in there.
Kelly, yep.
They had Kelly lined up, I think, on Truesdale, and they had Andy Cruz. They brought Andy Cruz in there receiver.
That's right. Yeah.
On Truesdale, and we quarterback sneaked it, and really there was nothing there. Daniel just kind of ad-libbed a little bit and found a hole on the other side, got in the end zone, and of course then we got the penalty for celebrating and backed us up. But fortunately we had a great kicker, Johnny Howard. He just banged it through, and we got the win. So I mean, it was just a great victory for Anderson football and Anderson High School, obviously, and
Absolutely.
And being able to do it over the rival Turpin was awesome. And but it was tough to see the Turpin kids, the disappointment they had, because they were a great team. They really were. But we had taken advantage of our opportunities, and I think talked about that, the Hall of Fame induction with those guys. That's what that team did. They took advantage of opportunities that were presented to them. So.
Well, hey, Jeff, real quick, that doing those games, and for me to be on those teams that were absolutely horrible, to get beat up, and why are you playing football, and Anderson stinks, and then for me to broadcast and then go to that state championship game, I literally was crying because of that. I mean, it meant so much to guys like us.
Sure.
So it was really, really cool to see your high school. And I think all those guys are just, I think that's why it's so special to guys like me and some of the other guys that went through all those brutal, brutal years to see
Sure.
that. And I think that it just meant a lot to all of us to see. I mean, it was overwhelming for me. I can tell you that.
Oh, it was. I mean, and then it was to just after that game to get us focused back for Ashland, who was a team that threw the ball and scored a lot. But again, they came out and we knew they were going to play man to man. So we figured we would score some points, and then, Cookie and Matt had a great game plan on how to, we kind of attacked them into the boundary a lot. And we were looking at film, and I think as Bob Parrish was the one that mentioned it, he goes, we're going to state championship, because we just felt we were better than them. Then we got to play Louisville in their own backyard, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Was difficult, but it was such a cool experience to go to Massillon Stadium, and we were the home team, so we got the home locker room with all the pictures of all the coaches and former players and things like that, which was really, really neat. And the whole experience of touring the Hall of Fame and as a team and doing all those kind of things was just something that I think is a lifetime memory for these kids. And then fortunately we played really, really well at the beginning of the game and got out in front of them, and we were able to win. And my big memory of that really is kind of going back to that head coaching thing, is I couldn't really stay on the field and celebrate as long as everybody else, because I had to go meet with the press.
Oh,
Last thing I want to do.
great.
But I remember some guy asking me, well, how do you defend a 6'6", 6'7" receiver? I said, you better get a 6'6", 6'7" corner. I don't know. And I just wanted to get out of there and go back and be with the guys and celebrate. That was awesome.
It was awesome.
Jeff, winning the state championship was awesome, but you've also had a pretty neat experience of coaching a couple of guys that have gone on to not just play Division I college football, but they're in the NFL with Norwell and Mons. So, I mean, could you have foreseen that for those guys, for the future for those guys when you were coaching them?
We knew that Andrew was going to have the size. I don't think we realized what was really inside of him, as far as his drive and the goals that he had to really be as good as he could be.
Mm-hmm.
And he just became so dominant his junior year. Ohio State offered him, and I remember going to see him in school. I said, hey, Ohio State's going to offer you, they want you to commit on his junior year on National Signing Day, for the next year.
Wow.
He goes, yeah. He didn't even, once he got that offer, he shut down everybody.
Yeah.
Which I think he was happy with it. He didn't have to deal with it anymore. And again, we thought, well, yeah, he's certainly good enough to play at Ohio State, but to be almost a 4-year starter there and all Big Ten and so forth. And, but then he goes as an undrafted free agent.
Right.
But now he's one of the top guards in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes to show you, an expert doesn't always know what they're talking about. And Andrew was certainly somebody that proved people wrong all the time because of just how hard he wanted to work and how much he wants to win. Greg, on the other hand, we felt like was going to be a kind of a late bloomer. He was not as big as Andrew as a sophomore, but came on as a junior and really became very, very athletic. And we actually, I know a couple times guys would come in and they wanted to talk about Norwell, and I would try to say, yeah, he's really, really good. He's a great player. But I said, there's also another really, really good player here. He's just not as big. But I said, he's very athletic and he's really smart. And, Greg, I think, some teams missed the boat on him, obviously, because he went to Toledo and had a tremendous career. And, again, though, he's an undrafted free agent, but he's still in the league and doing great things. And just two totally different kind of kids, but both, I think, when they had the opportunities in front of them, really seized those opportunities, to get them in the position they're in now.
Yeah, they're all around just great guys too. I mean, they're tied to the program, and I know they're pretty serious about Anderson, and they always want to know what's going on. So it's two good guys. But there's one thing that I found, like you were saying, I didn't realize that basketball was kind of your first love and all that. But I do remember going to some games, because I can't remember if you coached my brother Timmy or not, but I remember going to games and watching you as a JV basketball coach.
Yeah.
And you were pretty intense with those basketball games. Talk a little bit about that transition, because you're going from football and you're going immediately right into basketball. Was that hard for you to switch from the football mode to the basketball mode?
It a little bit, but again, Frank was similar to Vince, and he had a good practice plan every day, and the drills, we did a lot of the same drills and things like that. So it's coaching's coaching. You set up a good plan, you follow the plan, you reinforce fundamental things and so forth. Now, as far as the intensity of it, maybe I wasn't. It's a little different in football than it is in basketball, especially in JV when there's hardly anybody in the gym. My son was teasing me about that over the last couple of days, how he went to a game one time and he was probably like 7 or 8, I don't know. And I guess I was out on the floor a little bit too far yelling at the official, and he goes, "You were just daring that guy to give you a technical." I said, "I probably was. I don't remember." But it was fun. We had a lot of good time with that, and I was just glad Frank gave me the opportunity to coach that. And I'm coaching Nagel 8th grade now, and I'm enjoying that. So
I might have to check that out. See how you are with that.
Yeah.
See if you go out on the floor at all anymore.
No, it's not worth it. The officials aren't any good in 8th grade. It's a waste of my
All
time.
I know is, Danny, wherever he coaches, whatever he coaches, he wins.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's winning at the 8th grade level. He won at the JV level, football. Yeah.
Yeah, no
Yeah, I coached a lot of games. I was thinking about it the other day. I think I've coached over 311 football games at Anderson.
Wow.
Between an assistant and head coach. I mean, that just, to me, I'm like, wow, I really was there for 311 games. Plus, I did JV for a lot of years, and I was like, God, I am old.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Coach that many games.
Jeff, talk a little bit about your family, and I know that you had 2 kids that went through and played sports, and you were fortunate enough to have Kyle with you playing football while you were coaching there. And how was that experience? What was that like, and how proud were you? Because I know they're both great kids, great students, and great athletes.
I got to coach Kyle. He started to play varsity when he was a junior, and he was playing defense. He was the backup quarterback, but he was a starting free safety. So he was with me a lot, and it was just great to coach him. He had great memories. He had a great class of kids around him: Nicky Weiss and Mark Wetterer and Joe Flading and Jake Davis and all those guys, and Alex Barton, and so I knew those kids a lot from when they were little, and that was just a lot of fun to be with him. And then the next year, Vince's final year, Kyle was the quarterback. So I didn't coach him directly anymore, but he really grew as a leader, I think, being a quarterback, and I think that's served him well in what he's doing now. That he's not afraid to take a leadership role in things, and gone on to be successful. And then my stepson Payne was with us. He was a sophomore then my first year. And Payne was, 5'5", 5'6", undersized, but he was always in on scout team. And, he even, he was on that 3 years he played with Andrew and Greg, and there were times, and we thought Andrew broke him a couple times, but Payne just kept coming back, and he was just a great team player.
Yeah.
And so I'm really proud of those two guys for how they developed as people, and I think going through football really helped them to do that. And it was, they were both here for a few days over the holiday, and just had some great stories, and they tell stories that I don't even remember anymore. But it was fun. We had a good time.
Well, good.
That is awesome. And then so we always, I think you've seen some of these, and we try to end these with some of your memories that you have. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but maybe your favorite memory is, maybe as a player in high school, and then maybe as a coach, and then maybe also as either a parent or a teacher.
Well, I think in high school, I think it was my last game as a senior in football. We played Greensburg, and they were favored, and we ended up beating them. And I just remember we just kept running power at the end of the game over and over on the same side. And I was playing tight end at the time, and all I had to do was double team with the tackle, and it's like we were just saying, "Here it comes, boys, you can't stop us." And I remember that. It was a great feeling. And then it's at Anderson, obviously. As you say, what's the second one, Danny, in college?
As a coach,
as a coach, I'm sorry. And as a coach, obviously you can't beat winning a state championship, but to be able to go back to it 2 years in a row was just really, really, I felt so fortunate that I was able to do something like that. But there's so many guys that you remember. I was texting with Aaron Zabel today. He was texting me because today's actually my birthday, and so he was texting me that.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. But just the relationships that you have with those kids, I think, is what you don't really recognize until you get towards the end of your career. That's so neat. But those games were amazing. We had some great games with Turpin over the years. We had great games with Winton Woods. The wars we had in the playoffs with Winton Woods were just unreal. Amazing games. There's just so many.
And then what about maybe something with Kyle, maybe as a parent? I mean, was there anything like that watching or Payne, either one?
Kyle had a tremendous game against Glen Estee his senior year. They were favored. They came over to our place, and we beat them pretty handily, really. And he had a great game as a quarterback. And I had a picture in my office upstairs of him lined up under center. Somebody took. So that one, as watching him, and then Payne being able to start a game his senior year in 2009 team, which was a tremendous football team. We were Division I at the time, and won a couple games in the playoffs, and then lost a tough one to Elder. Yeah. But he started a game his senior year, and seeing that, I think is great. And then my daughter Kara was a great athlete too, and just going to watch her play basketball and softball and soccer, and I just had a great time. And I think my kids got a great education at Anderson, and also just made some great friendships and got to play some really high level sports.
Yeah, Jeff, I know that Steve and I really appreciate your friendship with us, and you and I have had some great, Redskin reviews, and just, doing all the stuff that we've done. And I know that, all the former players, and especially myself, appreciate everything that you've done to keep the program going in that right direction. And we value your friendship. And Steve, I mean, like I said, you and I were talking about getting Jeff on for a while, and it was just figuring out the timing and everything. But man, I tell you what, we talk about the long history of just great people and great coaches. Jeff's certainly up there in Anderson High School history.
Class guy. Glad we could do it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fun. Appreciate it, guys.
Jeff, I really appreciate it. So we're going to wrap it up here. So for Steve Ellis, Dan, this is Jeff Giesting. You've been watching This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you next week.